Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, October 15th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego's economy has taken a hit due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but you might be surprised just how big of a hit. New data from the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, shows a nearly $12.5 billion loss to the region's gross regional product. KPBS reporter John Carroll says 3 sectors have taken the brunt of the losses.
The SANDAG report looks at the effect of the pandemic on our economy for 6 months, from when the statewide stay-at-home order was issued in mid-March to the middle of last month. The $12 billion loss has primarily affected tourism, retail, and education. That translates to 80% of the jobs lost.
There's probably around 176,000 jobs that are lost or can be directly tied to losses due to the COVID. And about 140,000 of those are in the 3 industries that I mentioned previously.
It's not all doom and gloom. There has been fairly robust recovery in some industries.
In the industries that are primarily white collar, when you take a look at things like the innovation sector, you look at finance, insurance, and real estate, pretty much those jobs have come back and people are working remotely.
It's the people who can least afford it who have been hit the hardest. Workers who earn less than $27,000 a year.
So that's pretty much minimum wage employment. We see that the employment levels are still down by 23%.
Tourism is starting to show a bit of recovery. Major says mainly from people driving down from LA and Orange counties. It's the business travel segment that Major says might never go back to where it was because most business conferences are now being held online.
Will a business really send its people across the nation, pay for the airfare, pay for the hotel, the price of entrance into the convention?
Major says we'd be in even worse shape if it weren't for money from the first stimulus bill. He says a second one is critical to keep San Diego from falling into a financial abyss. Whether and when that will come is, at this point, unnervingly uncertain. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Parents, educators, family child care workers, and unions that represent them are demanding state leaders address California's child care crisis. Today, they gathered outside a home daycare in Chula Vista. They say businesses are struggling from decreased funding and increased costs, including Wi-Fi to help children with distance learning. More than 5,000 family child care providers have been forced to close since the start of the year. Doctors are warning a coronavirus case surge this fall could overwhelm hospitals, kill hundreds of thousands, and leave even young survivors with long-term complications. Here in San Diego, 3 more deaths and 143 new cases were reported. While the health crisis continues, stimulus negotiations are at a standstill with no relief in sight. Camila Bernal explains.
COVID-19 is surging around the country.
Over the course of the past 3 weeks, we've seen an alarming spike in COVID patients who require admission.
Increasing hospitalizations stressing healthcare services in parts of the Midwest.
It means that we're not able to give the kind of care that we truly want to give to the entire community.
The pandemic also continuing to take its toll on the economy. 898,000 American workers filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week.
A lot of us in the hospitality industry are going to have to reinvent ourselves.
Weekly claims have fallen a long way since peaking in late March, but the improvements have slowed to a snail's pace in recent weeks, and new jobless claims have begun rising.
We're just fighting for our lives.
But in Washington, D.C., stimulus negotiations are at a standstill.
Getting something done before the election and executing on that would be difficult.
With the deal in question, Wall Street opening sharply in the red on Thursday. Investors also skittish amid surging coronavirus cases in Europe. Leaders there imposing new restrictions to slow the spread. Health experts warning people in the U.S. and abroad to brace for a difficult road ahead.
Our new normal means we are going to have to be living with this for some time and make some sacrifices, but put the work in.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
San Diego's refugees have been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. Our partners iNewsSource say a survey released today shows 42% have at least one family member who has lost a job or was laid off. Many can't afford rent. Families with children are struggling with online learning and face language challenges. The San Diego Refugee Communities Coalition did the survey. For more on its findings, you can go to iNewsSource.org. Former Chargers defensive end and Hall of Famer Fred Dean has died of COVID-19. Teammates and friends say the 68-year-old Dean had been battling the illness for months. Dean was a second-round pick of the Chargers in 1975. He joined the 49ers in 1981, where he won 2 Super Bowls. You can find all the latest updates on the coronavirus on our website, kpbs.org. Just click on the Tracking COVID link on our homepage, and you'll also find online tools, including cases by zip code and the county's trigger trackers. A caregiver at Avocado Post-Acute Nursing Home may soon face charges for an alleged sexual assault we first reported last week. KPBS reporter Amita Sharma has the update.
El Cajon police opened an inquiry into allegations that former certified nursing assistant Matthew Flukiger sexually assaulted resident Catherine Gotcher-Girolamo on June 27, 2019. That's 8 days after Gotcher-Girolamo reported the alleged assault to Avocado's administrator, who was mandated by law to immediately notify police. El Cajon Police Lieutenant Keith MacArthur called that delay frustrating. He said, quote, "There are laws put in place for a reason. Those laws are put there to protect the victims. If everyone is following through on what their part of the law is, it helps seek justice for the victims," end quote.
I'm surprised that it took so long.
Why do you think it took so long?
I don't know. I just don't know.
Gotcher-Girolamo says she is pleased to hear that her case has been forwarded to the DA's office. Flukiger is also accused of sexually assaulting another senior at a different El Cajon nursing home. The DA's office is also reviewing that case. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
You could say what is old is new again at Camp Pendleton after a Marine brigade is brought back after 22 years. Here's KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh.
The 1st Landing Support Battalion was originally created just months after Pearl Harbor in 1942. Their red patches were fixtures on beachheads in campaigns like Guadalcanal and Okinawa. Lieutenant Colonel John Peterson commands the reactivated unit.
Now it's become just part of our rich legacy within Landing Support Battalions as far as being called red patchers and what we wear both on our trousers and on our cover.
Camp Pendleton is adjusting to new procedures and screening to limit the spread of COVID-19. A few months ago, ceremonies like this one were canceled.
Through social distancing, just all the other procedures that everybody else is following. I think we all know just a little bit more how to safely operate in this environment.
This battalion is part of an overall plan by the Marine Corps to spend more resources working closely with the Navy after years of fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Not knowing all the answers right now, we're going to be part of those, trying to find those solutions for how we operate in the Pacific or around the globe differently.
In the coming years, there will be more emphasis on amphibious landings and traveling the globe with lighter Marine expeditionary units, while heavier units like tanks will soon be history. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett is one step closer to confirmation. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee set October 22nd for its vote to recommend Barrett's nomination to the full Senate. And as John Lawrence reports, a final vote will likely come before November.
Judge Amy Coney Barrett moving closer to a seat on the Supreme Court of the United States.
I would say you're one of the greatest picks President Trump could have made.
Barrett was grilled over a two-day period on issues including health care, voting rights, and the environment.
Do you believe that climate change is happening and is threatening the air we breathe and the water we drink?
I will not express a view on a matter of public policy, especially one that is politically controversial.
You've made your point clear that you believe it's a debatable point.
If Barrett is confirmed, she will succeed the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and give the High Court a 6-3 conservative majority.
We've seen that our Democratic colleagues have very few questions actually to raise about Judge Barrett's qualifications.
Among the questions Barrett wouldn't answer included whether she would recuse herself in a possible legal battle over November's presidential election.
I certainly hope that all members of the committee have more confidence in my integrity than to think that I would allow myself to be used as a pawn to decide this election for the American people.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Today is the last day to complete your 2020 census form. More than 99% of housing units in the U.S. have done so. You can still be counted by calling the number on the screen or going online to 2020census.gov. And experts warn that an undercount could have serious consequences for communities of color. The census is the basis for deciding how many representatives each state gets in Congress, as well as how federal funding is spent. Tonight was supposed to be the second presidential debate between Joe Biden and President Trump, but now, instead of sharing the stage, the candidates will participate in separate town halls at the same time. More now from Nadia Romero.
President Trump and Joe Biden won't be in the same place.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
On the same stage.
President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill.
Answering the same questions.
First for you, sir. Finally, for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other.
Instead, they will participate in town halls like this one.
Welcome to our town hall with President Trump.
Solo, but at the same time in swing states, with President Trump in Miami and Biden in Philadelphia.
Actually, I'd like to watch him because I want to see if he can make it through the program.
The second presidential debate scheduled for Florida shelved after the commission that holds the debates wanted to switch to a virtual format in light of President Trump's COVID diagnosis, but the president refused.
I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That's not what debating's all about. You sit behind a computer and do a debate. It's ridiculous.
Now, President Trump and Joe Biden will take questions from voters.
Hello, I want to thank you, sir, for having me here and taking my question.
On potential topics such as the coronavirus pandemic, the stimulus fight on Capitol Hill, and the future of the Supreme Court.
You'll know my opinion on court packing when the election is over.
During the dueling town halls, the candidates will both attempt to convince voters they are the right choice for the job. President Trump trails Biden in national polls. In swing states, he is only tied at best, as more than 17 million have already cast ballots. Time is running out to shift the trajectory of the race. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
Democratic vice presidential nominee Kamala Harris is taking a few days off the campaign trail after one of her staffers and a flight crew member tested positive for the coronavirus. Today, Harris and her husband both tested negative for the virus. Candidates from opposing parties are running for San Diego's District 5 City Council seat. But as KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser tells us, they hold similar positions on several issues, including police reform and future budget cuts.
The Democrat in the race is Marnie Von Wilper, a San Diego deputy city attorney. While some candidates this year support overhauling the police department, she has a different view.
I work in law enforcement and with our police officers every day, and I see the very challenging jobs they do.
She doesn't support defunding the police, but does want reforms.
I also want to make sure that we are not burdening our officers with problems that are not criminal. You know, the only response to homeless individuals should not be a 911 call with police officers.
Her Republican opponent is Joe Leventhal, an attorney in private practice. He also was tempered in his criticism of police.
Every institution needs to be looking at how to improve and figure out ways that we get rid of any implicit bias in our department.
He wants to take police off of mental health calls. In dealing with coming budget cuts, Leventhal would try to make city services more efficient.
So I would really want to maintain our current service levels in our police and fire. It may mean that we are saving money by trying to reduce overtime, which frankly might mean hiring additional police and firefighters.
Von Wilpert also would not cut from police or fire departments, but would look to cut outside vendors.
We spend over $200 million a year on outside services that we really could bring in-house, such as legal services or architects, surveying, planning issues.
The outcome of the race could impact the balance of power on the city council. The seat is currently held by termed-out Mark Kersey, who was elected as a Republican but has since become a no-party preference voter. So the race will help determine whether the council's Democratic majority grows or shrinks. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
By now, you've likely received your vote by mail ballot if you've registered to vote. iNewsSource reporter Mary Plummer has this guide on what to expect if you plan to vote by mail.
If you're planning to vote this year, get ready. A lot is changing. Unlike in prior elections, all San Diego County registered voters will receive a vote-by-mail ballot automatically. Those ballots need to be postmarked by Election Day, but a new state law allows extra time for them to arrive and be counted, up to 17 days after the election. If you don't want to mail them, there will be more than 100 drop-off locations around the county with staff to help you. You can also bring your ballot and vote in person if you'd rather, but check your sample ballot for a location near you. There will be far fewer polling locations this year. If you run into any problems, call the county at 858-565-5800. And remember, the deadline to register to vote and receive a mail ballot is October 19th. You can still register after that, but latecomers cast provisional ballots. Happy voting!
And for a complete guide to all the election changes this year, go to iNewsSource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded, nonprofit partner of KPBS. The need for housing the homeless is at an all-time high. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne takes us to a motel in Escondido that will soon provide housing and healing.
In a commercial zone in the city of Escondido, a motel that had been listed for sale since 2019 will soon serve as a tool to combat homelessness. Run by Interfaith Community Services.
And check in on them, make sure that they're okay.
Interfaith and other organizations throughout San Diego have steered towards purchasing distressed hotels as a way to provide a safe and effective space for people in need of housing.
It's nice. I'm starting to put up my decorations. So
that's exciting. Interfaith graduate Jennifer Kasizak calls them healing hotels.
Because it's impossible to go from street to, something that's like this or like the place I'm at now.
Kasizak was diagnosed with breast cancer 6 years ago. The physical and financial burden of treatment took a toll on her, causing her to lose her home and job.
The chemo kind of made me have brain fog a lot, so it was really hard to get a job afterwards, similar to what I was doing before. And so I just kind of, I guess you could say, gave up. Didn't pay rent, didn't pay my car, max credit cards, so it's just like, just depression, pretty much, and being broke because of cancer.
She says the Interfaith program made all the difference in helping her get off the streets and into a place she can call home.
And it's amazing they have these programs. And the fact that they're for people that come out of the hospital and they can recuperate, I think that's fantastic.
Fill in the pool, turn that into a nice outdoor area.
Greg Angel is the CEO of Interfaith Community Services. He says cases like Jennifer's ring the bell for the need for spaces for people to recover and get back on their feet. That is what led to the recent purchase of this motel in Escondido.
We're so excited to turn this now empty motel into a place of healing and transformation. And we've been working on this project for more than a year. We have the support of our San Diego County Board of Supervisors, who approved a $6 million grant to go towards this purchase. Ultimately, it'll be a $10 million project.
The motel will provide beds for a mix of recovering and graduate interfaith clients.
We will help people who are exiting hospitals without housing, and we'll also help people who are on the streets to be able to have a safe place to go while they move forward in their lives.
Angel says the need for these beds has never been greater in North County.
There are thousands of people experiencing homelessness on any night in our county. And the reality is there are not enough shelter beds. There are not enough graduate lodging beds or recuperative care beds like we will provide here.
The trend of purchasing hotels to serve as housing for the homeless has been gaining momentum. The San Diego City Council recently approved the purchase of 2 hotels to serve as permanent housing, a move that Mayor Kevin Faulconer says is leading California in the right direction.
And by converting these hotels into housing and continuing to navigate folks into other housing, our region will continue to lead the state on solutions to reduce homelessness.
Interfaith Community Services continues to provide food, employment, addiction treatment, caseworkers, and counseling support to those in need. The purchase of the motel now means the expansion of services they can provide.
So every room here will be helping another person move forward in their lives.
In Escondido, Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And this story was produced with support from the Economic Hardship Reporting Project. Hot, dry, windy weather has prompted power officials to cut service to more than 50,000 customers in Northern California. The outages are aimed at preventing fires if winds damage power lines. Some customers are angry they'll be without electricity until at least tomorrow.
For the prices we pay in California for electricity, to have the utility able to just shut it off because it can't control its own system, I think is not right.
A statewide flex alert has been issued until 10 o'clock tonight. You're asked to limit your electricity use to protect the power grid from any unexpected shortages.
Hope you're having an excellent Thursday, and thanks for tuning in to KPBS News. I'm AccuWeather's Marvin Gomez. It's been a hot day for us for sure, and as we continue into Friday, those temperatures above average will continue as well. Into the weekend, onshore flow will return, and that's going to bring us a thicker marine layer. Overall, there's a cooling trend throughout the next couple of days, and we could even see some fog into the valleys next week. Let's start talking about some of our weather alerts. A heat advisory continues in effect for most of San Diego County through Friday afternoon and through Friday evening. Notice San Diego County not under a red flag warning, but places to the north of us, Santa Clarita, Riverside, and across the Anaheim, we could be dealing with some of those weather conditions that could quickly spread the flames. Now let's talk about San Diego County for tonight. Temperatures cooling down to 53 degrees in Oceanside. Ramona, you're going to be dropping near 54. As we look at our Friday, warm conditions for most of California, low relative humidity, dry air everywhere, but mainly in some of the areas we have highlighted here for you in the orange, and that's where we could see some strong winds and rapid fire growth if flames are initiated. Now let's talk about San Diego County. Here's a quick look at your temperature high into Friday afternoon. Oceanside coming up to 89 degrees, 99 very close to the triple digits out there in Ramona. Along the coast, well, again, the cooling trend will continue into the next couple of days. Eventually into the early part of next week, we will see highs into the upper 70s. Across inland areas, very close to the triple digits on Friday, but we'll be in the mid 80s as we transition into Monday, and perhaps the low 80s for Tuesday. Across some of the higher terrain in the mountains, 74 degrees on Friday, 76 on Saturday, and 73 degrees on Sunday. Notice there isn't any sign of rain here. Even across the deserts, we'll be talking about the mostly sunny conditions, hot weather through the next couple of days and even into the early part of next week. Back to you.
Free parking is officially over in the city of San Diego. Following a 2-week warning period, the city resumed parking regulation enforcement today. San Diego suspended parking enforcement on March 16th following the stay-at-home order, limiting enforcement to holiday or Sunday regulations only. The Great American Shakeout, an earthquake awareness event, was smaller than last year's event. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says the pandemic is to blame.
Fault line's half a mile from here. That fault line, it could happen just like that.
Millions of Californians registered to take part in the Earthquake Awareness Day, but numbers lagged well behind last year. More than 10 million people took part in the drill a year ago, and registrations in the state were only running at about 6 million this year. Participation may be down, but public safety officials say it's crucial to be ready.
In an emergency, while we are here to help you, it is important that you have the means and measures to take care of yourself. Participate and practice drop, cover, and hold.
The California Earthquake Authority says earthquakes are immune to the pandemic, and state residents need to know how to protect themselves.
In California, because of our building codes, most buildings are not going to collapse. The idea here is, you see people running in terror from the building. The reality is that our largest risk is falling objects.
Maffei says the drill is typically held at 10:15 on the third Thursday of October, but she says the event can be done anytime. She called it a great family activity. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Your funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.